Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next Hewlett-Packard's Lab podcast from Research to Reality. For the first time ever on our podcast, we have a great pleasure to host Carl Chow. Hello, Carl.
Hey, Dan. Great to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Carl is clean room engineer. So we're going to hear about how it is to operate a clean room. But Carl, you have much longer history. We actually met about 26 years ago or
That's
more.
Right. That's right.
And can you tell us a little bit, what's your progression in labs and in HP, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise?
Yeah. Well, I actually I'm going on 36 years at HPE.
Wow.
So time flies. But I actually had a career before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Illinois. And when your dad's an engineering professor and your brother's going to engineering, you want to do that too. So I got a mechanical engineering degree at the University of Illinois. And my first job was with General Motors. So I was in Flint, Michigan for 5 years at the Buick engine plant. And at the time, the name of the game was making about 5,000 engines per day because engine builds were constraining car builds, and every engine represented $30,000 car. So my job there was in high volume manufacturing of blocks, cams, cranks, heads, all the engine components. And this is right when a time when Dr. Deming's statistical process control was coming online. So I learned a lot in that job. But my ticket out west was actually going back to school. So I went to the Stanford program in manufacturing systems engineering. And the reason I mention that is that I worked on a student project for HP, and that's actually how I got hired into the company. And shortly after I joined, I did my MBA at night at Santa Clara University, which was also funded by HP.
Mm-hmm. And then what happened then?
Yeah, then I had a series of positions, starting as a manufacturing and process engineer. I was an engineering manager. I was an operations manager over a 400,000 square foot distribution organization for the LaserJet team. And then that led to a position in the Literature Distribution Center, where I was the manager over about a 100,000 square foot site that we shared with Fry's Electronics in Campbell, California. Mm-hmm. And this led to 3 collaborations with Labs. The first being Labs was very interested in printing at the time, and they asked me if we were interested in running experiments on a new digital press. And that was, of course, the Indigo digital press. So we had a big ribbon cutting ceremony. We converted our break room into a print lab, and we ran experiments for HP Labs. So this was a tremendous experience for us because we got to deal with the experts at Labs on printing. Now, at about the same time, the LaserJet and inkjet folks were coming out with their workgroup printers, such as the LaserJet 8000, 8100, and the Color 8500 series. So we started asking ourselves questions. Instead of pre-printing all our literature and having it in a big warehouse, what if we could do a literature vending machine, put these at the end point, which is at the sales office, and do a distributed print model? So we set up our own print lab, and we collaborated with Labs on that as well. And we had our own printers printing our own literature, finishing it, customizing it, even putting electronic postage on it. So that was the second collaboration with Labs. And then lastly, when we met was probably when I was in a position at the Executive Briefing Center, where I was representing Labs to customers and executives on all the great work that was going on. So those 3 collaborations really made me want to work at Labs, and that chance came about 5 years ago in this clean room opportunity.
And that's the time when you gave me this. So
Yeah.
every time I give presentation around the world and I use this, I remember of you.
Right.
This is what you use in these executive briefings. And once you moved to clean room, you didn't need it.
Yeah.
So Dan here.
I haven't seen one of those in a while, but the clicker and the laser pointer are standard tools in the briefing center.
Well, to this day, I'm using it. When I project these teleprompters, I use this.
Yep.
In your case, I don't, but in an hour, I will use it again.
Great.
So now that you are in the clean room, First of all, what does clean room mean? Can you explain to those who don't understand? And then what are your roles and responsibilities in clean room?
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have our own clean room here at Labs. Not everybody can afford that luxury, but it gives us that capability of doing quick turnaround work at the nanoscale. So our clean room is a Class 100 clean room. This is for nanotechnology. It started in Palo Alto, and of course, when we moved to Milpitas, we took some of the tools and rebuilt the lab here and set it up during the pandemic. So our Class 100 clean room is a very good environment to do etching. We do all sorts of work with e-beam writers, what we call sputtering equipment and evaporators. And we're able to do work at the nanoscale in the R&D environment.
Could you, for those who don't understand, could you differentiate Class 100 versus other classes? And then just a couple of words what these all other processes mean?
Yeah, Class 100 really means that in a cubic meter of airspace, there are less than 100 particles that are half a micron in size. So there's always filtering going on. It's a very clean environment, probably a good environment if you have allergies. We wear the bunny suits because humans are the biggest source of pollution in the clean room. So we don't want any sources of dust or powder or anything like that. So we suit up. Because that will contaminate the work and might short out the very work that you're trying to do.
So the quality of your output will not be as desired.
That's correct. That's correct.
And could you explain, if you don't mind, just a little bit about these three processes, sputtering and etching and others?
Yeah, it's been compared as like a cookbook in baking a cake, but at that nanoscale. So in some cases, you're adding material to the wafer, and then you're also subtracting, depending on what pattern that you want to make a new circuit or test out a new theory. So you're adding material, you're subtracting material, you're washing the wafer, and you're constantly measuring your results between steps. You don't want to go too far and figure out that you've made a mistake and then you've done a lot of work for nothing. So we've got a lot of metrology equipment as well in the clean room.
And over the years, because you were looking at labs from outside, now you're looking from inside, how have labs evolved?
Yeah, again, those three collaborations really led to me wanting to work at Labs. The focus at Labs has changed over the years, of course, with the acquisitions and divestitures. I mean, we've gone from heavy focus in printing and imaging, looked at memory and compute. The thing that remains the same is all the great, smart people that are here. So that remains a constant, although the focuses have changed depending on what the business units need.
And how do you see your work influences our products, our productization, even research here?
Yeah, our goal in the clean room, and we have a team of 3 of us, it's fairly a 24/7 operation. We respond to alarms and things around the clock. But our job really is to keep the uptime on the tools so that when the researchers want to do something, the tools are available and working. So this is a combination of making sure that the tools work, that the facility is in good shape, that we have all the supplies that we need, and that all the infrastructure works as well. So uptime is really the first thing. And the second thing right after that is safety, because we're dealing with dangerous gases, toxic chemicals, and we've got to keep the whole site safe. So we are constantly drilling with our chemical emergency management team, and we're constantly drilling to make sure that we're prepared for anything that comes up.
I've even seen a little shower there in case something goes wrong.
That's right.
You already touched on it, but I'd like you, if possible, if it's okay with you, to tell me a little bit more. How do you personally measure your success?
Yeah, again, the key factors, like I said, is safety and uptime. So at any given time, we have very close contact with our facilities partners here to discuss infrastructure. as well as we have a users group so that we get direct feedback from the researchers if something's not working, if they need a specific chemical, we're running out of something, or they need some sort of capability where we can bring that online. So we get this direct feedback. We try to turn those into results. We try to keep all the tools working. And there's some very complex tools that we have that we need to keep the uptime satisfactory to our users.
I already can guess the answer to my following question, but I'll ask anyway. What do you find most gratifying in your work?
Well, it's having that impact on the research and enabling the research. So our role is in a support sort of fashion, but we hope to be able to make great things possible. So right now there's a lot of activity in the clean room on the AI front, and so that's very exciting. And our role, again, is to support that work and make sure that the tools that the researchers need are available when they need them.
A few podcasts away, I asked a younger colleague of mine, what would she do if she would start all over again? And she just laughed and said, Dan, this is not a question for me. I just started career. You should ask someone else. And the time has come to ask you. So what you are doing now is almost like a little top of the iceberg. You've done so much before in all kinds of areas, in business, technology, mechanics, this or that. So if you would start again, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. First of all, being an engineer is great, but getting the MBA was, to me, a chance to say that I was interested in management. So I was on a management track for a long time. I had probably 100 people reporting to me at this offsite location, and that's a great experience to be able to be in management. But because of the print project that I was working on, I actually returned to be an individual contributor because I wanted to play that out and see how far we could go on that. So the first point is that everybody should sort of experience what it means to be a manager in this company. There's really good support for that. And the second comment on the MBA is that it's really good to have at least a background in marketing and finance. Mm-hmm. As an engineer, you really have this technical focus, but if you only have that, you can't figure out why some of your programs don't go forward. Yep. There's all sorts of other considerations. So you kind of have to know where the money comes from, where it goes, and how that works. And then on the marketing front as well, it's really helpful to have some background in those two areas.
We take pride in HP in general, but especially in labs, of doing things for broader good, not just for profit. So what you do now, can you see how it is for the broader good?
Yeah, one of the things that I've carried over from my executive briefing center job is the offer to give any labs employee a tour of the HP garage, which you did a podcast at. But there's so much history there. I mean, I've probably done that tour 100 times, but it's still such a special place because it's where Bill and Dave started the company. We have a really rich background, and there's a great story on how we got started and grew into this company. So I take a lot of pride in being able to give that tour to whoever wants that tour. And there are a lot of 30-year employees, 20-year employees that have not ever been to the garage. But it's something that I could pass on to employees here, and they get a different perspective and hopefully are recharged when they come back and are able to write their TechCon paper or their article in Nature after being recharged.
I know one 25-year employee who went with you for the first time, even though he lives in Palo Alto, not far away from Garage. So I highly appreciate you taking me over there. We usually end this podcast on personal note, asking all kinds of personal questions. For example, have you read any interesting book? I've been buying books, I must tell you, based on these advices in podcasts as of lately.
Well, actually, I'm reading a book right now. I don't read many books because there's so much online nowadays, but the book that I'm reading right now is from the HP archives, And the title of it is Fred Terman at Stanford. So this is an entire book. It's probably 500 pages on Fred Terman, who was one of Bill and Dave's mentors. And what we mentioned in the tour is he had a great influence on the beginnings of Silicon Valley and the industrial park concept. So that's an interesting book, and I hope to be able to answer questions about him if they come up.
And what do you do in your spare time when you're not in the clean room or reading Fred Terman's book?
Well, curiously to say, the move from Palo Alto has been great for me in that I can ride my bike to work. So instead of spending an hour each way in the car, I'm 5 miles from here, and I'm able to ride my bike, which is a great way to keep in shape. On the downside, I also get the first alarm. If there's an alarm, I'm the closest guy to the site, so I probably have to come in, but that's okay. I'm actually in a band, so I play classic rock. I'm a drummer in a band, so that's a lot of fun. We get together with some guys and we rock out.
Where do you play?
I play the drums.
No, where?
We haven't really played anywhere yet. We're open to gigs. Maybe there's an event that would be suitable for
Maybe
us.
next podcasts will be with the whole group.
Maybe that would be great.
And the last question, you already touched on it, that you started at UIUC or at Illinois. Then you moved here. Can you tell us geographical background of yours? And how do you compare all these geographies that you would like to discuss?
So where I grew up versus
Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois, a typical Midwestern upbringing. We grew up in a town called Park Forest, which is about 30 miles south of Chicago. I mowed lawns as a kid for $3 a lawn and delivered the huge Chicago Tribune Sunday newspaper, for probably 10 cents each. Some of those things don't exist now or are very rare nowadays. But yeah, I had a typical Midwestern upbringing, but I always wanted to come out west. My brother was already here working for Xerox PARC, so I was able to move in with him when I moved out. Had an offer to go back to General Motors after taking a leave of absence, but decided that HP was a great fit. And so I stayed out here.
Great history, so many interesting things. Thank you very much, Carl.
Thanks, Theon.